Okay, guys, joining the podcast right now. We cannot even believe we've got him on the line. This is Peter Engel. You know him from Saved by the Bell. You know him from California Dreams. Peter, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on today with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Where are you guys?
We're in Missouri here, which is a far cry from the Palisades in California there.
I've been to Missouri. I like Missouri.
Yeah, there's it's not a bad place, and of course you originally set the Saved by the Bell show in Indiana, so there's some Midwestern.
Oh, you know that? You mean the bogus Good Morning Miss Bliss, which we then called Saved by the Bell for those episodes.
Well, let's start there. You called it bogus. I mean, Good Morning Miss Bliss was I think it was an ambitious effort for you guys. It had never been done before. Just give us a little bit of info about how that came about.
Okay. I was under contract to NBC. Brandon Todikoff had asked me to come there for their new NBC productions as an executive producer. And we had done a pilot, primetime pilot. It was the last minute. Haley Mills took the place of Sandy Duncan, who went on to another show. And it was based on Brandon Todikoff's sixth grade teacher, Miss Bliss. And that original was Locke Voorhees and Dustin Diamond and Mark Paul Gosselaar and Mr. Belding,
sure.
Dennis Haskins. We were on Disney Channel, who had lent us Haley Mills, but she was on a lifetime contract. And so we did the pilot for NBC, prime time. It didn't make it, and they decided to do it on the Disney Channel. We did 13, and Disney didn't think it had legs, and neither did I. But Brandon said, let's take the four best people out of there and make a new show for Saturday morning. And that's how it came about.
And of course, you're speaking of Brandon Todikoff, NBC. He passed away, sadly. I mean, how did it feel to get him on an episode there, like later on Saved by the Bell? Did that feel good for you guys to get him on?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Brandon said, why are you calling me? Brandon and I were very close. And I said, because quite frankly, I know you're the only one I can get.
Well, I mean...
And that was the truth. And the day he was doing it, Bob Wright, the president, his boss, president of all NBC, was there, and his daughter was in that show. And that was the day he told them he was leaving to go to Paramount. And I couldn't get him out of his dressing room. I said, Bob, let him alone. Let him do the show. Then talk to him. Brandon was a great supporter. He was the one who came to me and said to me, I want to do a Saturday morning live action show. So New York Times said to me, and you said, what a great idea. And I frankly said, could you get someone else?
Wow.
and it was the greatest. Saved by the Bell was the best thing that ever happened to me professionally in my life. It was a magical experience. It was just magical. And then I went home, and my wife said, how was your day? I said, Brandon wants me to do the Saturday morning show. And she said, what'd you tell him? I said, I told him to get someone else. She said, are you crazy? She said, we've been praying and hoping we could do a show that our boys at that time, the heart at the end of the show, my boys made that when they were 4 and 2. We wanted to do a show the boys could grow up on, like Happy Days, etc.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went back the next day, and I told them I'd be back in 3 weeks for the show, and that became Saved by the Bell.
You talked a little bit about Good Morning Miss Bliss, and the students in that show were close with the teacher, Miss Bliss. When you moved to Saved by the Bell in California Bayside, why were the students not really close with a certain teacher like they were in Good Morning Miss Bliss? What was your thoughts on that?
What we decided was that the kids would be the stars of the show, and that Belding would be their link as the adults, because Belding was very involved with them, all through the series. And Belding was a great character.
Absolutely.
But interesting enough, it doesn't matter. So that was our decision to make, and obviously it was the right decision. Because Haley had a problem. She had never gone to school. Remember, she was a child actress, right? Mm-hmm. So she was acting like an English school mom that she had seen in movies. And she said to me one day, this show would be great without me.
What?
and then the decision was made to take the 3 kids in Belding and add 3 more. And it was the last episode where the decision had been made, we're going to go forward, we're going to do it. Without Disney on NBC. And it was Christmas time. And I called Haley to my office to tell her that we were going forward and not with her. And she brought me this beautiful scarf. And she said, what did you want for Christmas? She said, what did you want to talk to me about? Oh, I said, I'll talk to you later.
Wow. So, you had already, most of your cast already rounded out. You had, of course, Dennis Haskins, you had Mark Paul Gosselaar, you had Dustin Diamond. What was it? You had to, of course, bring in then, Mario and Elizabeth Berkley and Tiffany Amber Thiessen. What was that process like, casting the other 3 kids?
I'll tell you exactly. We had the core. And what we had decided was, Brandon always wanted him to be in junior high because that's where his Miss Bliss was. And the second episode he came, his daughter and wife sat in the audience. He said, am I the only one who thinks they're in junior high? I said, yes, junior high isn't sexy. Everyone remembers the people they went to high school with.
Sure.
First blush, first crush, first love, first heartbreak. And I said, that's what we need to put into the show now. So Elizabeth Berkley, we had seen on Miss Bliss, but she was half a head taller than Mark Paul Gosselaar. So she was a year older than them. And we were going to use her, that Carla Gugino played that first episode of Miss Bliss. And we were going to use her. And then when we got to adding characters, we were bringing her in for Kelly Kapowski. And then we had seen Tiffany Amber Thiessen when she was 13, and I always felt she had something going for her, and we brought her in to read for Kelly. And then Slater was supposed to be, and I'll get to what happened in the room in a second if you guys want to hear about it.
Absolutely.
In the network room, in the casting room. So what happened was, and then we had an Afghanistan girl we loved for Jessie Spano. Okay, so what happened was that, and as far as Slater was concerned, he was supposed to be a white Vinnie Barbarino Italian kid. Okay, and I didn't like what we were getting. And one night I called the casting director. I said, "Where is it written that Slater has to be Anglo? Why couldn't he be Latin or Asian or African American?" And she said, "Well, that's the way you wrote it." I said, "Well, it's unwritten now." It's the same thing with Lark Voorhees on Miss Bliss. Lisa Turtle was supposed to be a Jewish princess from Long Island who moved to California. And what happened was they brought her in for me to meet, just on a meet and greet for an episode further down the line. And I said, "Well, have her read now." And they said, "What is she going to read?" I said, "Lisa Turtle." She said, "But she's black." She's not black. I said, "She is now."
Yes.
Same thing happened with Mario. 2 days we found him. And we never even dealt with Slater to the college years. His name was Sanchez. His father changed his name to get into West Point. Anyway, so what happened was we now go to the network, and we have Mario read, and he was right away. The network said yes. And then we had the Afghanistani girl read for Jessie Spano, and people were kind of lukewarm. But we loved Berkley and we loved Tiffany. And Brandon said, "Why don't we make Elizabeth Berkley Jessie, and why don't we make Tiffany Kelly Kapowski? Let's have both of them." So we made that decision, but I was going to be telling them that night. So I'm in the elevator with both of them going down, and I'm smiling at both of them, and they both think they didn't get the job. And it was a magical cast. It was magical. They never missed. But they were just the most wonderful kids to work with.
Can you go into the Screech lines where he says "oops" and then lets the Zach's scheme or plan slip? And what were your thoughts on that? How using that to reveal Zach's schemes or whatever his mischief to the other kids?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question.
Basically just how it would always come about that Screech would unwillingly reveal kind of each episode's plot by
Right.
The oven knob. How did those kind of jokes kind of come about?
Okay, how it came about was Dustin was a comedy genius. He was a genius in school also. And I realized that he was like a secret weapon. Whenever a scene was flat, I'd put send Screech in. The girls in the locker room were never particularly funny, for instance, but we needed it for the stories and the girls in the locker room. And if the scene was flat, we sent him in as Barbara Bush. We sent him in as Sinead O'Connor.
Yes.
Of course, we would always put him in one of the lockers. That was our secret weapon to have him revealed. And when he got hit by lightning, the young kids in America, because we didn't know we had all the teens and tweens yet. We actually invented the word tweens. When he fell out of the window or he got hit by lightning, he was like having a cartoon character. And he was golden. You could use him for anything. And he was a great way to move the story because he would be the unwilling. Remember when we put him in the filing cabinet in Bell's office? Did you ever see that one?
Oh, yeah.
We've seen them all.
Okay, so he was like a secret weapon. Whenever it reminded me of Laverne and Shirley, where Squiggy and Lenny, they would say, "What moron can we get to do this?" and knock on the door. Hello. You always knew that Screech would give you gold.
And he was a bit younger. I mean, talk about how did that come about?
He was only 11.
Yeah.
What happened was, I read it. They give on their resume that says date of birth. So we were casting in the summer, and I said his birthday was in January, and you're looking at it quickly. So I said, all right, he's going to be 13, and the other kids are 14, and Elizabeth is 15, or whatever it was, right? So we hired him. The second episode, I went to Mark Paul Gosselaar. I said, "What's with Dustin?" And he's like a kid. And he said to me, "He's only 11." I said, "What? He's only 11?" I said, "I never would have hired him if I knew he was 11." And he was with me 11 years. He was assistant principal when he hadn't even graduated high school yet. In real life, he was 22 when we finished.
Can you talk about casting Jeff Hunter, Patrick Muldoon as Jeff Hunter, and do you think he kind of regrets that role, as people still give him a hard time about stealing Kelly away from Zach?
Well, you can't imagine what happened when he kissed her. The audience was booing. We had about 400 teenage people every week. They were booing. And so Mark Paul and with Tiffany and he were breaking up outside the prom where they had kissed for the first time.
Yeah.
And she tells him about Jeff. The audience is booing, and so between scenes, they said, I said, "What do you want me to do? Make you back together again in this episode?"
Yes. How much influence? I mean, you had a host of writers, great talented people. Did you have to go through each episode and kind of okay it, or did you leave it up to your writers to do a lot of those?
Oh, no. I was totally hands-on.
Sure.
With Bell. I wrote 11 of the first 100 with Tom Tenowich. But I was in the room. Of course, after that we had California Dreams and then another show, and then I couldn't be there all the time. But for the original Bell, I was totally, on every of the shows, even when we had 6 shows shooting at the same time, I read every script and every outline and approved everything. And every casting I was always there for. But on Bell, I was totally hands-on. And it was a great adventure. The kids were just great, and their parents were great. They always put the show first. And of course, the highlight was going to Hawaii. I mean, that was like the whole family. We took parents and school teachers, and everyone to Hawaii. The Hawaii movie was the most fun I've ever had in my business.
Oh, wow. Can you talk about the Tori episodes and where Kelly and Jesse are supposed to be during those?
Okay, we had a problem. What happened was we were supposed to finish. We had already shot the graduation, and that was supposed to be the end. We were supposed to end and not do another season, right?
Uh-huh.
And there was already talk about the colleges, which never was quite right. But anyway, so we shot the graduation, but Tiffany had an offer to go with Aaron Spelling for 90210, and Elizabeth, I didn't know it was going to be Showgirls, wanted to do movies. So we didn't re-sign them because we couldn't re-sign them. Okay? So what we did was we had to hold so of course there's hysterical crying because in the graduation they're all leaving, but when we shot it, it was only that Kelly and Elizabeth were leaving. So I said, well, I just don't want to make believe they've gone. So we held a few episodes, and then we brought Tori in. We still make believe Jesse was on the phone from Washington or somewhere. We just didn't want to, because we wanted to keep the impact of the graduation. If they'd been gone, we would not have an impact. So we made believe they were just away. For 11 or 12 episodes. And Tori came in because we had to have somebody come in.
Well,
but the truth of the matter was never known is they were never there.
Yeah, we always would say that, Kelly and Jesse are there. They're just in another room or something. So we pretend they're still there.
I remember there was a long-distance call from Tiffany. She was in a volleyball tournament in South America or somewhere.
Yeah, modeling in Paris, perhaps. I mean.
Right, yeah.
But, of course, then you go into the college years, and I actually really enjoyed that first season. And, how did the only season, of course, but what was your plans from that? Did you plan on going further with that?
Yeah, what happened was when we did the Hawaii movie, we were done, okay? And what happened was we were doing the concept testing on Bell to see if there could be something else. And one of the girls, you're looking through the glass, they can't see you, and the concept testing said, why'd you just send them off to college? And John Miller, who ran the whole day part, went running down the hall to Don Omar and said, why don't we do a primetime pilot to send them to college? So that's how that came about. But we were in a terrible time period. We were against Full House, which already had been there for 6 or 7 years, and something else on CBS, which had been there for 6 or 7 years. And I said, you can't put us on Tuesday night. I said, we were going against ourselves in the audience. But they did, because they were desperate in those days. And we did I think, about 20 of them, and they were okay. We started off great. First couple of weeks, we beat, and then we just kind of fell off. And it was about ratings. It was all about that.
Well, and going back to the original Saved by the Bell, we always talk about continuity between episodes. Was that a difficult thing for you, because there was a lot of characters that showed up and then never returned, like Eric Tramer and a couple other Slater's girlfriend in the beach episodes. Denise Richards, I believe, was.
Oh, and what's her name? Stacy Carosi at the beach. The
Leona
beach
Creel.
was also fabulous, guys. Let me tell you something. I now live on Santa Monica, overlooking the world, and I can see the beach club where we shot.
Was Mr. Carosi still there? Malibu Sands, how's it going?
The Malibu Sands. Now, Beverly Hills 902 also shot there that summer. We were green and white. They were pink and green, and they were the Beverly Hills Beach Club.
Wow.
And people don't realize we both use the same place. That was also one of the great times. It was like going on vacation, because most of the kids lived down here while we were shooting there. I remember I went ATM driving one night, racing Mark Paul Gosselaar.
that turned into an episode.
Drove right into the ocean.
that turned into an episode, I guess. You had Craig Strand.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And Stacy Carosi.
Stacy, I think she won it. Well, I'll tell you what. Talk about, because Mark Paul, you had such young kids. Was it a challenge keeping them? Because I know a lot of them dated on set. Was that?
I knew you were going to get to that. Okay. Yes, they dated, and then it was terrible when they broke up because they had to play boyfriend and girlfriend, perhaps on camera.
Yes.
And it got bad where it turned one night into cliques. Tiffany at that time was now with Mark Paul, okay? And I had to, it was almost like I had to have a session with them. Guys, you can't, it's hard to be in love off camera and against each other on camera and vice versa. But they did date each other. And you remember in Palm Desert when Kelly and Zach got back together voluntarily?
Yeah.
Yeah, Palm
That was
Desert.
the same week she and Mario came off the road from the mall tours and were together.
Oh my! She dated Johnny Dakota too, right?
Johnny Dakota was a real boyfriend.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he was a real boyfriend, and we used him in that episode. Then, when we came to the beach, Mark Paul and her fell in love. Everybody dated everyone else except Screech.
Poor guy, poor Dustin Diamond. Peter, what would it take to get this group back and to do a reunion? And how would you write one if you were to do it?
They won't do it.
They will not do it?
It's been tried, but they won't do it. And they won't. If you notice, Screech was on the cover of People magazine in the 20th anniversary. Remember that?
Yeah. We think Jimmy Fallon.
There's something between him and the rest of them, and I don't want to go into that.
Oh yeah, and that happens. People grow up, and people have. But I mean, the truth of it is, you cannot ever underestimate the magical value of the show as it was. Many people's favorite show of all time. Of course, you worked on California Dreams as well. Was California Dreams as gratifying for you as Saved by the Bell, or was it just the next logical step?
Well, what happened was they wanted. Well, we ended up with the whole Saturday morning schedule, if you remember. New Class, Cal Dreams, Hang Time, City Guys, and All About Us in One World. What happened was, I always wanted to do a garage band. We wrote 58 original songs. It was always a stepchild to Bell, unfortunately. And, but we just needed a companion. We thought it would be a good one, because we were now growing the schedule out. And hard. It was hard because we would interview people, audition them during the day, then at night we would take them over to Steve Tyrell's studio and they'd be hard. You know what I mean? Because they really had sang. And we were so hell-bent on them singing that I felt the first year was a disaster. And if you remember, we got rid of most of the cast for the second year. And we kept doing it and doing it and doing it. It didn't have the magic. The night before we started Shoot Bell, remember, I had a chipmunk as a lead-in. I was against a dog, a rabbit, and a raisin.
Yes.
And we didn't know if anyone would even find us, even though we actually premiered in prime time the first 3 episodes in the summer, just before we went to the 4th week was Saturday morning, which is a great Brandon Tartikoff idea because we got sampled by so many people. And but I knew the first night I saw them all together that they were magic. I didn't know if anyone was going to watch us. And what happened was the reviews were scathing. New York, San Francisco, all the hip places were scathing. And then some reporter called me from Atlanta. He said, I know you're getting skewered for being so wholesome, but hang in there. My kids love your show. Then Chicago came in with their reviews, and all of a sudden the whole thing turned around. And by the end of the first year, we had more teenage girls than the Cosby Show had in prime time.
Wow.
50%, and that's when we discovered teen television. That's when we invented the name tweens. Because the research people said we would fail, we'd fail. It was screaming at them. I wouldn't have put on Friends. There wasn't Friends before Friends. I wouldn't have put on whatever. And 2 weeks in, they came out the press spreadsheets that we had hit an audience that had never been identified before, 12 to 17, tweens and teens.
Oh,
and then once we knew that, we just ran with it all the way.
I think
they were
Zach.
magical. It was interesting because when that audience showed up, they never, ever missed, ever, in 5 years.
Oh, wow, definitely. I think Zach Morris's garage was the same as Matt Garrison's garage. Is that true?
I don't think so. You mean Friends Forever?
No, the garage, I think it was Lisa's mother's
Oh,
car
yeah, that's
during
right.
the
You're
drunk
right.
driving episode.
Well, whose garage did they play in when they were the band Zack Attack? Whose garage was that?
I think that might have just been a random garage.
But when they had gotten drunk, that was Lisa's garage.
Yeah, that was how was that?
No, it was Zach's garage. No, you're right. It was Zach's garage.
Because Zach's dad had to call Lisa's mom. But was that a tough episode to write? Because I mean, you had never really delved into the drugs, the caffeine pills with Jesse, but this was drunk driving, and a very serious issue for Saved by the Bell. Was that tough?
Actually, it wasn't. It was a tough line because the whole concept of Saved by the Bell was a week in the life of. And when the bell rang, set Monday morning till it bang. And the first year we never went on weekends and places, if you remember. But what happened was that we were concerned that the line, at the end of the day, if they scammed, if they lied, if they acted as schemes to get at us, at the end of the day, they all did the right thing and they loved each other. That was the basis of the show. And it was a thin line because you wanted to have fun with them being drunk, right? It would be funny, but at the same time, you didn't want to glorify it.
Yeah.
And you want to tell every show is a morality tale. If they don't do anything wrong, there's no lesson to be learned. And it was a very hard, yes, you're right, it was very difficult because when we got to the toga party, it was so funny and so terrific that we had to pull it back. We had the same problem on City Guys years later.
Can you talk about your cameo in the Palm Springs episode on the golf course?
Yes.
Me, Murray, when I make the shot, you'll owe me $1,000.
Yes.
That's great.
You missed that
Murray,
shot.
What happened was, it was so hot in Palm Desert. I mean, it was 105, like at night, so we're shooting at like 8 in the morning. And it was so hot. I looked at Don Barnett, my friend, and I said, you got 2 takes. And the guys had written it. I didn't write that one. The guys had written it, and they asked me if I may play Murray. I said, of course. Play the golf. I said, of course.
Oh, just so many
And then,
great
of course,
memories.
I was supposed to dig up the green with but I had to fake it because they didn't want us to dig up the green. And then Jesse came flying by. When Jesse came flying by with Zach, I mean that show. We did everything in that show.
Yeah, I mean, you got so much action. I mean, a lot of my favorite episodes are ones where they differ outside of the normal sets that we saw, the Max, the hallway. But for instance, the Attic, one of my favorite episodes of all time. You did a really good commentary on that episode, I believe, on the DVDs. Do you remember? I mean, where would you shoot an episode like the Attic and get an additional set for something like that?
Or the mall, right?
Or the mall.
I don't
remember
the Attic. I'm embarrassed right now.
Yeah. The Attic, where they go and Reggie with the big hair and she dances with Screech. They call him Don. He's got the beard, and
Jeff is there. They find out Jeff's cheating on Kelly with another girl.
We built sets. We had more sets than anybody ever had on our show.
Wow.
Because remember, most sitcoms only have the first and second act of maybe 3 scenes each. We had decided, because we were going against cartoons early on, that no scene would last more than 2.5 pages. So most shows have maybe 6. We used to have 12, 13 sets, 14, 15 scenes. Then as they got older, and we did less, but still more than anyone else. We built that. For instance, the mall, we just took out the original sets and built the mall. So most of those were shot, they weren't shot on location except for Palm Desert and the Beach Club. We built the sets right in the Stage 9 and NBC.
Can you talk about some of the teachers you got? Some great actors, Mr. Tuttle, Mr. Dewey, Miss Simpson.
Mr. Dewey.
Yes. Miss Culpepper, and I believe Screech's
dad. The lady you couldn't hear. What was her name? The lady you couldn't hear.
Miss Simpson.
Yeah, Miss Simpson.
Yeah, she was great. She was great. The teachers were great comic relief. But remember, this was the first show that was done with the teenagers as the stars. Family Ties, Michael J. Fox and what's her name was supposed to be supporting characters. Same thing on Growing Pains, like Kirk Cameron. They were not the stars, and they emerged only after time. This is the first time it was designed that the kids would be the stars. And they were playing their own ages, which was, I think, the magic.
Wasn't Dustin Diamond's dad also, didn't he play a teacher in an episode?
Yes, he did. We put everybody in at one point or another. Yes, he did. Dustin
Yes.
Enough, Huma. Yeah, that was how important was it that you wrote to these specific cliched characters, because we had hilarious names like Maxwell Nerdstrom. I mean,
Herbert Hodis.
Oh, we made all those names up. I mean, and then of course all my extra old girlfriends were characters also.
Wow.
But actually, the actual cast, I knew a guy named Screech Washington. I said, he was a producer. I said, I'm not going to hire you, but I'm going to steal your name. Slater was a kid who was in my son's kindergarten class. Zach was named after my dear friend John DeLorean, the DeLorean car. His son's name was Zach. So Lisa Turtle was a girl I knew. So most of and Mr. Belding Richard Belding had been my cranky editor when I worked at Universal.
Awesome.
Oh, Dennis Haskins, one of the best. Give us a little bit of insight about him, because he's one of I just love that guy.
He was great. Brandon came up for that hey with him, for him. And Belding was a unique character. I mean, he loved the kids, and loved them dearly, and would do anything for them. But then on the other side of the coin, they could get him to do anything. Zach could get him to do anything.
Exactly.
All they do is flatter him. You lost weight, sir.
Is that a new haircut? Yeah.
Your wisdom is beyond anything I can imagine, sir. I mean, we had a great time with Belding. I mean, remember when Screech was chained to a locker in his office?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great foil. But the key was he loved the kids and he loved the show. That was one of the keys to it. That he loved doing that show and he loved it, and he would do it. We could get him to do anything.
Can you talk about the?
And it was great. He was great because he loved them and he was for them, but they could manipulate the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the phenomenon of Richie's brother in the show, Rod Belding?
Oh, the Belding the Belding brothers?
Yes, fabulous Belding boys.
Yeah, it's funny because I then used that Belding brother as the father on a show I did with CW. That wasn't a C. Yeah, called Malibu CA. It was supposed to be the two brothers. One always got all the accolades. He was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I thought it was they loved him. They were to go rafting with him, and he was going to let them down. They were going to learn something. And Belding, of course, never would say the truth, but Zach overheard it. How do I remember these things? I did them over 20 years ago.
That's what's great about him. I mean, I think Mr. Richie Belding established himself as a sentimental character in that episode when the kids kind of dumped him to want to go on the raft with Rod.
Right.
And he kind of dumps the pamphlets into the trash can for his trip he had planned. I remember that being a really powerful Yosemite. That was a really powerful moment.
It was good. And Jesse's song, what happened was they were going to do this. They were going to do the same show on Fresh Prince, but they wouldn't let them do it.
Wow.
Because they felt they didn't want Will to take the tablets. They wanted Carlton to take them. And with us, they were fine. They let us do it. We usually had no problem.
Yeah.
But that episode you would think she had taken heroin. She had taken no-dose the way, but it was a good episode. Actually, this is interesting. I did 35 colleges about 5 years ago. I teach a master class like at Notre Dame, Michigan State, Ohio State, NY, you name it. And then we'd have a big Saved by the Bell night. And
Yes.
I always got the question, what was your favorite episode? So I would turn around, what was your favorite episode? And amazingly, Jesse's song was the favorite, and my daughter's favorite episode was Jesse's song. In fact, she was in Zack Attack. Zach, will you sign my hand?
That's right.
That was my daughter. That was Lauren. And Jesse's song, when I would go around the colleges, I turned the question. It turned out that that was the favorite episode of most of the people.
Yeah, it has lasting impact. People still talk about that one, but my goodness, there's so many to pick from. My opinion.
My favorite, I think, was Risky Business with Max von Nerdstrom when Screech's parents went to Graceland.
Oh, House Party, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we introduced Tori Spelling.
Yeah, that was the Risky Business scene with them playing Barbara Ann. That was
Yeah, wasn't that great? Doing the Risky Business with the air guitar, with the brooms. That was cool.
Yeah, in my opinion, season 2 really started to they kind of moved away from some of the silly hijinks from their freshman year, and the episodes really picked up. I mean, Zach's War was amazing. That one, Running Zach, where the Indian chief comes back. Those were really, to me, the foundation of what made the show amazing.
Well, we found we hit our stride.
Yeah.
You know, we hit it, and we understood who was what and who could do what, and we stretched them within their boundaries. And of course, Zach was the glue to the camera. He would meet with me. They would go to school from 8 to almost noon Mondays, and we had our own schoolroom up in our where our offices were above the studio, and he would come to me. And no one knew this ever, and meet with me at 10 of 12. The table reading was at 12, and we would go over to the TTCs, to the camera.
Yeah, wow.
And he would set the whole stage for what, and of course he could stop time, he could talk to the camera, all those cool things. And our fantasies were great. But they were magical. You know, people talk about television, and yes, we love to think we're great producers and writers, but the truth of the matter, it's all casting. I mean, that cast was magic. I mean, they never ever missed.
Can you talk about James? I believe there was an episode about the SAT. Zach gets 1,502. Mr. Belding gives him too much homework, so Zach gets James to come in and try and lighten his homework load. I believe he's wearing a fake beard, and it comes falling off, and then Zach breaks character and he's laughing.
He was great. He was great. But you're talking about the...
Yeah, and I think Zach kind of breaks character as James's beard falls off.
Yeah, we struggle with... He was from Stanford, or whatever we call it.
Stansberry.
Yeah.
Stansberry,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, that was terrific. But that was great. That was quintessential Zach.
Peter, we could talk to you for the next 2 hours. You are the man. But before we let you go, you got to let us know what you're up to now. Some shows that we can look forward to seeing you. And I believe you have a show coming up on E!
Okay. Of course, I did Last Comic Standing for 7 years, and
Great
that may again come back. It's a show that never dies. You familiar with Last Comic Standing?
Oh, definitely. We love it.
Okay, right now we are premiering in January on E! With a show called Chasing the Saturdays. The Saturdays are 5 hot girls, the biggest rock group in London, and they have sold 3 million records there. And it's a story of them coming to America. This is it. If you make it here, you can make it anywhere. And it's following them as they come to America and break their single, and it's following the group as they break America, and hopefully they will.
Oh.
And the single will come out in January, several weeks before we go on the air. They broke it last week in London, which we went and shot. And the girls are fabulous. They're the best girls ever. And this was an idea I had when I was doing California Dreams. Wouldn't it be great to have a real group? And we looked for these girls for 5 years, and we found them.
Wow.
And so that comes on in January on E! Right now I'm writing my book called I Was Saved by the Bell, Stories of Television and such.
Wow.
And I'm picking my spots now. I'm not hands-on like I used to be, but it's still fun. This is my 16th series.
Yeah, I think you've earned the right to pick your spots now, Peter.
Yes.
You've been around a while. You've done a lot of great things, and I'll tell you what, we will definitely be looking for the new show coming up. Definitely looking forward to the book. We'll look forward to some dirt maybe in that. But hey, we cannot thank you
No, I
enough.
won't put the dirt in. I gave you the big dirt. I almost got. It's not that. That actually is only one chapter in the book.
Oh,
well, it's 2 chapters
So yeah,
actually.
this was a teaser right here, guys. Come, read the rest. If you want to hear the rest, read the book, as they say.
Well, I love talking to you guys. Keep up whatever you're doing. I wish you well.
Hey, Peter, thanks so much. You are the man. We will look forward and following your work from here on out. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care, Peter. Thanks.
And guys, that was Peter Engel. Cannot thank him enough for being on because
Oh, this means more to us than he will ever know. I mean, this was huge, exciting. This was a dream come true for us.
I was like I had a smile on my face the whole time I was talking to him. I couldn't believe it. I mean,
I was like shaking a little bit, like, oh my God, Peter Engel's on the line.
We're talking to the actual creator of Saved by the Bell, about Saved by the Bell, and I don't know how I even was able to come up with questions because he's just such a great guy. Can't thank him enough for being on, and look for his new show coming up on E, and just he's just like he said, he can pick and choose his stuff now. He's done so much for television. California Dream, Saved by the Bell, you talked about him.
He's earned a break. He's earned a rest. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. A great man, great storyteller, and we just thank him so much for being on.